In 1994, Michael Jackson made a decision so shocking, so deeply personal, that not even his closest advisors were prepared for it. Without warning, without press, without explanation, he sent $1 million to a woman he had never spoken to. What happened next would connect their lives in a way no one could have predicted. Who was this woman? Why did Michael choose her? And what secret reason pushed him to make the most emotional financial decision of his life? The world never knew this story. Until now. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe, like this video, and turn on notifications so you never miss our emotional stories about Michael Jackson. Los Angeles, 1994. The envelope arrived at Neverland on a quiet Tuesday morning. No return address. No stamp from any organization. Just Michael Jackson's name written in careful handwriting, as if the center had practiced it many times before daring to send it. Michael found the letter on the edge of his desk after a long night of rehearsals. He almost ignored it. Fan mail arrived by the thousands. But something about this one felt different. The paper was thin, the edges worn, the kind of letter that had been folded and unfolded too many times before being sent. Inside were 4 pages. They were written by a woman named Anna Whitmore, a schoolteacher from a small town in Oregon. Her words were simple, almost apologetic. She explained that her son Daniel was dying, a rare heart condition, 2 failed surgeries, 1 final chance that the doctor said might work, if they could afford it. They couldn't. Michael read the letter in silence. Anna wrote that Daniel had discovered Michael's music during long nights in the hospital, that the songs made him feel brave, that when the pain became too much, he would whisper, "If Michael can sing, I can breathe." She never asked for money. She only wrote, "I just wanted you to know what your voice did for my son." Michael folded the letter carefully and placed it over his heart. And in that moment, something inside him broke open. Michael sat alone in the quiet of his study at Neverland long after the sun had disappeared beyond the hills. The letter from Anna Whitmore rested on the desk in front of him, unfolded, its pages gently stirred by the breeze coming to the open window. He had read it again, and again, and again, not because he didn't understand it, but because he did. The words had found their way into places inside him that no amount of applause or fame could ever reach. He closed his eyes, could almost see the boy Anna described, thin, fragile, brave, holding on to music as if it were oxygen itself. Michael leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. He thought of his own childhood, of hospital visits, of the loneliness of hotel rooms, of the fear of not knowing what tomorrow would bring. He thought of how music had saved him when nothing else could. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. It was Karen, one of his longtime assistants. "Mike, you okay?" she asked gently. He nodded. "Yeah, I'm just thinking." She noticed the letter. "Another fan message?" He hesitated. "No, it's more than that." Karen didn't push. She simply nodded and left him alone again. Minutes passed, then an hour. Finally, Michael stood and walked to the large window overlooking the property. The lights of the amusement park glowed faintly in the distance, silent, waiting. He rested his forehead against the cool glass. "I can't ignore this," he whispered. He returned to his desk and picked up the phone. "Get me John," he said to the operator. John Branca, his attorney, answered moments later. "What's up, Mike?" Michael's voice was calm, but firm. "I want to send money to a family in Oregon. A lot of money." There was a pause. "Okay, how much are we talking?" $1 million. The silence on the line was heavy. "Michael, are you sure?" "Yes." "Is this for a charity foundation?" "No." "Then what's the reason?" Michael closed his eyes. "Because a little boy is running out of time." John sighed. "We need to discuss this carefully. That's not a small amount." Michael's tone didn't change. "Neither is a life." Another pause. "All right," John said finally. "We'll do it quietly. No press. No names." "That's what I want," Michael replied. When he hung up, Michael felt something settle inside him. Not certainty, but peace. 3 days later, in a small town in Oregon, Anna Whitmore was standing at the kitchen sink when the phone rang. She almost didn't answer it. "Mrs. Whitmore?" the voice said. Yes. This is John Branca, representing Michael Jackson. Anna nearly dropped the receiver. There was a long, stunned silence. I'm sorry, she finally whispered. Mr. Jackson received your letter. John continued. He would like to help your son. Help. The word barely registered. How? Anna asked. We will be transferring $1 million to cover all medical expenses. Immediately, Anna collapsed into a chair, her hand covering her mouth as tears poured down her face. She tried to speak, but nothing came out. Mrs. Whitmore? John said. I don't. Why would he do this? She finally managed. Because he believes your son deserves every chance in the world. That night, Anna sat beside Daniel's hospital bed and held his hand. Something incredible is happening, she whispered. You're going to get your surgery. Daniel smiled weakly. Is it because of Michael? She nodded. Daniel closed his eyes and whispered, I knew he'd hear me. The surgery was scheduled within weeks. Michael followed every update quietly, calling the hospital under a fake name, asking about the boy in Oregon. When the surgery finally happened, Michael stayed up all night, pacing his bedroom, praying in the dark. Hours later, the call came. Successful. Michael sat down on the floor and cried. But he had no idea that the real impact of his decision was only beginning, because Daniel's recovery would create a ripple effect, one that would reach far beyond a single family. And years later, Anna would do something no one expected, something that would bring the story full circle. The winter after Daniel's surgery arrived colder than anyone expected. Snow fell in thick, heavy sheets outside the small hospital in Oregon, blanketing the world in white silence. Inside, the machines hummed softly, and the scent of antiseptic mixed with the faint sweetness of the flowers that filled Daniel's room. Gifts from nurses, doctors, neighbors, and even strangers who had heard whispers of the miracle that saved his life. Daniel Whitmore was alive, but surviving the operation was only the beginning. The recovery was long, painful, frightening. Some days, Daniel could barely lift his head from the pillow. Other days, he forced himself to smile just so his mother wouldn't cry. Anna slept in the chair beside his bed, waking every few hours to make sure he was still breathing, still warm, still there. Michael followed everything from afar. He called the hospital every few days, never using his name, asking about the boy from Oregon. The nurses came to recognize his voice, gentle, concerned, careful with every word. Tell him I'm proud of him, Michael would say. They always did. Daniel slowly learned to walk again. Each step felt like climbing a mountain. When his legs shook, he would whisper lyrics from his favorite Michael Jackson songs, believing that if Michael could dance, he could survive. One afternoon, months after the surgery, Anna received a small package in the mail. Inside was a single glove, signed, To Daniel, keep believing. Love, Michael. Daniel cried harder than he had since the operation. He pressed the glove to his chest and whispered, He's real. He really cares. And he was right. Years passed. Daniel grew stronger, taller, healthier. He returned to school, made friends, learned to ride a bike, laughed louder than he ever had before. The shadow of the hospital slowly faded from his eyes. But Daniel never forgot. When he turned 16, he wrote Michael a letter of his own. He didn't ask for anything. He simply wrote, Because of you, I am alive, and I promise to make it mean something. Michael kept that letter in his private safe, and then life unfolded. Daniel went on to study medicine, not because it paid well, not because it impressed anyone, because he had once been a boy in the bed. Years later, Daniel became a pediatric surgeon. Every child he saved carried a piece of Michael's kindness forward. Meanwhile, Anna's life transformed as well. She started volunteering at children's hospitals, telling families, miracles sometimes come from places you don't expect. She never revealed Michael's name. She kept that part sacred. One night, years after Michael's passing, Anna and Daniel sat together watching old footage of Michael performing. Daniel said softly, I wish he knew what he did. Anna wiped her eyes. I think he did. But something else was coming, a moment neither of them could have imagined, because one day, Anna would finally have a chance to repay the kindness that changed their lives forever. And what she would do would leave the world in stunned silence. The circle was about to close. The email arrived on a quiet Tuesday morning. Anna Whitmore was sitting at the kitchen table, a cup of coffee growing cold in her hands, when she opened her laptop and saw the subject line. "Ree, a story you need to tell." She stared at the screen for a long moment before opening it. Inside was a message from a journalist at a major national publication. He explained that he was working on a piece about anonymous donations that had saved children's lives. Stories of quiet heroes who never sought recognition. Someone had mentioned her name. Anna's heart began to race. He asked if she would be willing to share her experience. She closed the laptop. For years, she had protected the story. Not because she was afraid of the truth, but because Michael had clearly wanted it that way. No cameras, no praise, no spotlight. She walked to the small bookshelf in her living room and removed a framed photo of Daniel at age 9, thin but smiling in his hospital bed, the signed glove resting beside him. "Michael," she whispered, "what should I do?" That night, Daniel, now a pediatric surgeon, came over for dinner. She showed him the email. He read it slowly. Then he looked up. "Maybe it's time." "But he never wanted attention," Anna said. Daniel nodded. "No, but maybe someone out there needs to know that this kind of kindness exists." They sat in silence, the weight of the decision between them. Finally, Anna replied, not to the journalist, to Michael. She took out paper and wrote the letter she had been carrying in her heart for decades. She told him everything, about Daniel, about the surgery, about the life he had given them. Then she wrote, "The world doesn't know what you did, but maybe it should." 2 days later, she agreed to the interview. The article was published 1 month later. It told the story of a mysterious $1 million donation that saved a dying boy. A donation traced back to Michael Jackson. The world stopped. Headlines exploded. Michael Jackson's secret $1 million gift revealed. The untold story of Michael Jackson's greatest act of kindness. The king of pop's quiet miracle. Fans wept. Hospitals shared the story with families. Doctors printed it and taped it to their walls. But the most powerful moment came when Daniel finally stood before a room full of reporters. He held the glove, and he said, "This is why I'm alive. This is why I became a doctor. Because one man believed in me when he didn't even know me." The world saw Michael differently after that. Not as a superstar. As a human being who chose love when no one was watching. But the story wasn't over. Because that revelation sparked something extraordinary. A movement of kindness that would carry Michael's spirit far beyond his lifetime. And the next chapter would reveal the moment when Anna and Daniel realized that Michael's gift had become something bigger than any of them. The article spread faster than anyone expected. Within hours, it had crossed continents. Television anchors spoke Michael Jackson's name with a tone of awe and disbelief. Comment sections filled with people sharing stories of quiet kindness they had never told anyone. Hospitals printed copies of the article and taped them to bulletin boards in pediatric wings. Teachers read it to classrooms. Parents showed it to children. And in one small hospital in Oregon, Daniel Whitmore stood in a hallway watching a young girl clutch her mother's hand as a nurse explained a difficult diagnosis. Daniel knelt beside her, his voice gentle. "You're not alone," he told her. He meant it. Because of Michael, he knew what it meant to be seen. Soon, letters began arriving at Anna's home. Hundreds of them. Some from parents whose children were sick. Others from fans who said the story helped them believe in goodness again. Many simply said, "Thank you for telling the world." Anna read every one. She wept often. But one letter stopped her heart. It came from a woman in Chicago whose son needed surgery she could not afford. The fear in her words was painfully familiar. Anna called Daniel. "Someone else needs help," she said. Daniel didn't hesitate. "Then we help." Together, they started a small fund in Michael's memory. Quietly, without ceremony. The Believe Fund, they called it. At first, it helped one child. Then another. Then 10. Then 100. Donations poured in from strangers who said, "Michael inspired me." A school raised money with a bake sale. A retired man sent $5 and a note. This is all I have, but it's for the kids. The ripple became a wave. Years passed. The Believe Fund expanded into multiple hospitals. Daniel led a team of doctors who offered free surgeries every year in Michael's name. Families hung pictures of Michael in waiting rooms. Nurses said his music calmed children before operations. One night, after a long day, Daniel and Anna stood outside the hospital watching the sunset. "He saved all of this," Anna whispered. Daniel nodded, and he never even knew. But something extraordinary happened next. A documentary filmmaker contacted them. "I want to tell this story," she said, "not as entertainment, as hope." They agreed. The documentary premiered on what would have been Michael's birthday. Audiences sobbed. But the most emotional moment came when the film ended with unseen footage. Michael in the studio, laughing softly, saying, "If I can help someone breathe easier even once, then my life means something." The theater fell silent. Across the world, people held hands and cried. And yet, Anna felt something unfinished, because there was still one thing Michael never received. One final message. And Anna knew exactly how she would send it. Anna Whitmore sat alone at her dining table long after midnight, the house wrapped in silence. The glow of a single lamp spilled across the surface where dozens of letters lay spread out. Messages from families, children's drawings, hospital photos, donation receipts, newspaper clippings, and handwritten thank you notes. All of it existed because of one decision Michael Jackson had made decades earlier. But Michael had never known what that decision became. Anna picked up a blank sheet of paper and began to write, not as a public statement, not as part of a campaign, but as a woman whose life had been rewritten by a man she never truly met. She wrote about Daniel's first steps after surgery, about his graduation, about the day he put on his first white coat, about the children who smiled because of the Believe Fund, about hospital rooms filled with hope where fear once lived. And then she wrote the sentence that made her hands tremble. "Michael, you saved more lives than you will ever know." She folded the letter carefully and placed it inside an envelope, addressed simply to Michael Jackson, Heaven. The next morning, Anna and Daniel drove to a small hill outside the city, overlooking the hospital where everything had changed. The wind was soft. The sky stretched endlessly above them. They placed the letter inside a white balloon. Daniel held the string. For him, Anna whispered. They released it. The balloon rose slowly, carrying the words into the blue silence. Neither of them spoke. Weeks later, Daniel was working late when a young nurse approached him, her eyes wet with tears. "Dr. Whitmore, I just wanted to tell you something," she said. "My little brother is alive because of the Believe Fund. My family had no hope, and now we do." Daniel hugged her. That night, he stood alone on the hospital roof, staring at the stars. "Thank you, Michael," he whispered. But the story was not finished. One afternoon, a small boy named Lucas arrived for surgery. He clutched a worn CD of Michael Jackson's music in his hands. "My mom says Michael helped me," he told Daniel. Daniel smiled. "He's helping you right now." The surgery was successful. Afterward, Lucas asked if they could play Michael's music in the recovery room. Nurses agreed. His laughter echoed down the hallway as Man in the Mirror filled the ward. Anna watched in the doorway, tears streaming down her face. Years continued to pass. The Believe Fund expanded internationally. Daniel trained young doctors who carried the mission forward. Anna spoke at hospitals, schools, conferences, always ending her talks the same way. One act of kindness created all of this. Late one evening, after a conference, a young woman approached Anna and handed her a folded note. "My father was one of the children your fund saved," she said, "and because of that, I exist." Anna stood frozen as the woman walked away. She unfolded the note. "Thank you for letting Michael's love reach me." Anna pressed the paper to her heart. That night, she dreamed of Michael standing on a stage, lights behind him, smiling softly. He didn't speak. He simply nodded, as if to say he had finally seen everything. When Anna woke, she felt a peace she had never known. The ripple had become an ocean, and far beyond music, beyond fame, beyond the world's memory of Michael Jackson the star, Michael Jackson, the man, was still changing lives. The city was quiet when Daniel Whitmore arrived at the Children's Hospital just before sunrise. He liked those moments. When the hallways were empty, the world still half asleep, and the weight of what awaited him hadn't yet settled on his shoulders. He paused in the lobby, the soft light washing over the plaque mounted on the wall. The Believe Fund, in loving memory of Michael Jackson. Daniel traced the letters with his fingers, a ritual he performed every morning for years. Because this building, this life, this mission existed because of one man's kindness. Inside, the hospital was already waking. Nurses prepared charts. Doctors gathered in clusters, coffee cups in hand. In a recovery room on the 4th floor, a 6-year-old girl named Ava whispered Michael's name before falling asleep after surgery. Her mother wept with relief. Daniel stood at the foot of the bed, his voice steady and calm. "She's going to be okay." The mother collapsed into his arms. By mid-morning, news arrived that would test everything they had built. A powerful corporation announced it was withdrawing a major grant from the Believe Fund. The budget would collapse within months. Programs would shut down. Surgeries would be canceled. Lives would be placed on waiting lists that children simply didn't have time for. The board met in emergency session. Fear filled the room. Anna listened in silence. Then she stood. "We don't quit," she said. "Michael didn't quit on my son. We won't quit on these children." Daniel looked at her. "We'll find a way." But they didn't know how. That evening, Anna returned home and opened the chest where she kept Michael's original letter, Daniel's glove, and the first donation receipt from the Believe Fund. She sat on the floor, surrounded by memories. And then the phone rang. The voice on the other end said, "We heard the fund is in trouble. We'd like to help." It was the family of a child Michael had once visited privately in a hospital in New York. They were offering the first donation. Then another call. Then another. Overnight, the world responded. Fans, families, doctors, musicians, people who had never met Michael but had been saved by his music during their darkest hours. The internet exploded with one message. Because Michael believed, so do we. Within 48 hours, the Believe Fund's budget had tripled. The crisis had become a miracle. Months later, on the anniversary of the fund's creation, Anna and Daniel organized a private gathering at the hospital. Survivors stood side by side. Children laughed. Parents held each other. Doctors cried openly. At sunset, they gathered in the courtyard. Anna spoke first. This started with one act of love. Daniel followed, and it continues with every one of you. Then they played Michael's music. As the final song faded, the children released hundreds of white balloons into the sky. Daniel whispered, "This is for you, Michael." The wind carried the balloons upward. In that moment, no one felt alone. No one felt forgotten. And Michael's presence felt closer than ever. The morning sun poured through the hospital windows. As Daniel Whitmore walked down the corridor, he had walked 1,000 times before. But this time, something felt different. Not heavier, lighter. The Believe Fund was no longer just an organization. It had become a living, breathing promise. A promise that love, when given freely, never truly ends. Daniel entered the pediatric wing, where children were already awake. Laughter echoing softly through the halls. A young boy named Marcus waved at him from his wheelchair, clutching a worn Michael Jackson CD. "Dr. Daniel," he called. "They're playing his song again." Daniel smiled. They always do. In the small staff lounge, Anna Whitmore stood by the window, holding the original letter Michael had sent all those years ago. She hadn't opened it in months. Some things were too sacred to touch often. When Daniel joined her, she handed him the letter. "Do you know," she said quietly, "that $1 million never really paid for anything?" Daniel looked at her, confused. She nodded toward the hallway. This did. They stood together, watching the children, the nurses, the doctors moving to the world Michael had unknowingly created. That afternoon, the hospital hosted a private ceremony. There were no reporters, no cameras, just families whose lives had been saved. Each child placed a white rose at the base of the plaque bearing Michael's name. Parents whispered thank yous. Some wept. Some smiled through tears. When the final rose was placed, Daniel stepped forward. "I used to be the boy in the bed," he said. "And now I get to help the boys and girls who take that same place. That's Michael's gift." Anna spoke next. "$1 million saved my son," she said. "But Michael's heart saved the world around him." As the ceremony ended, a little girl tugged on Anna's sleeve. "Are you Michael's friend?" she asked. Anna knelt. "Yes, we all are." That evening, Anna returned home alone. She opened the chest, took out the last letter she had written to Michael, and read it one final time. Then she placed it beside Joseph's letter, Daniel's glove, and the first donation receipt. She whispered, "Your kindness never stopped." In the distance, church bells rang. And somewhere, far beyond what any of them could see, the ripple of one man's love continued its journey through the world. Because that is what Michael Jackson truly gave. Not $1 million, but 1,000,000 chances. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and share it with someone who loves Michael Jackson. And remember, if this story inspired you, remember, even legends face battles unknown to the world. Subscribe, leave a like, and share this video with someone who loves Michael Jackson.